The story today begins with a boy named Bell, who has a rather strange love for his sister and wants to do everything to protect her. However, it's the same old story. He is a loser who gets expelled from the family, trains with a Buddhist monk, and returns overpowering, ready to take on everyone. But upon arriving home, he sees the city on fire, and when he finds his sister, she has already moved on to her next reincarnation. In that moment of rage, he is attacked from behind and eliminated, reincarnating on the exact day he is supposed to receive his divine weapon. But hold on, I haven't explained what a divine weapon is. Some weapons can only be found in the hands of those who are privileged. They are divine weapons. These weapons are the materialization of a person's soul. Thanks to this, these equipment are endowed with unique abilities. A family belonging to the nobility once defeated the evil god, the Catastrophe Duchy. Since birth, its members possess everything: bodies suited for combat, exceptional talent for battle, and divine weapons that are truly incredible. The protagonist was born into this family, which wishes to one day become a great hero, who will proudly wield the divine weapons he possesses. At least, that's how it should have happened. But at the oracle ceremony, when someone's divine weapon is manifested, he ended up discovering that he would have none. It was the first case in the history of his family where this happened, becoming the first major failure. Because of this, he was seen as inferior and faced constant humiliation, being called a public embarrassment. The second son of the family, Zane, managed to be a natural jerk. For him, useless people like the protagonist, who couldn't have a divine weapon, didn't belong there. He used this as a reason to unintentionally massage the protagonist's face, performing temporary facial harmonizations on him. Jessica and Sarah also watched this and did nothing. The former seemed to enjoy the humiliation sessions as well. Sarah, on the other hand, didn't like what was happening. She tried to intervene in some way, but Jessica made her trip and fall to the ground. She did this because the girl was called there to observe and witness what happens to those who are weak and without a future. Seeing Jessica stepping on his friend's head, the protagonist became worried, but he was in the middle of the involuntary massage session and was reminded of that. His aggressor said that filthy hybrids are very attached to each other. They are the children of concubines, which is why they are constantly humiliated by others, being called mutts. After being beaten, he apologized for not being able to defend Sarah, as he was too weak. With a broad smile on her face, the girl said he shouldn't worry, as she promised she would always stand by him. But the boy didn't want to remain in that situation. He told her he would become stronger and stronger, even if he didn't possess a divine weapon. Also promising that he would protect the girl with his own life. After they embraced, she thanked him for making that promise. Not being able to live up to that promise, as a few days later, he ended up being banished from the family. Immediately he began to lament, flooded with rage, for he knew she would be pursued. He needed to be strong enough to take her out of that place. Mastering skills with a normal weapon is useless against a knight who has a divine weapon. That's why he needs to become even stronger. In fact, he has no other option available. He presented at the counter of that shop a bag full of money. Showing the gold coins, he said he would take one weapon of each type. An unusual request. The seller thought the boy was about to embark on a personal war. 2 years had passed since he had been exiled from his family. Riding a horse, he continued traveling. The boy had learned something, but he still didn't have a divine weapon. Before him were several monsters. He had various weapons he could use to defeat them. He was also eager to finally start the fight, as he had developed mastery over all of them, becoming formidable. He even possessed a firearm, ideal for collecting money from debtors. There was nothing the creatures could do against him. At the end of the fight, a hooded man seemed to be watching everything, until he decided to speak to the boy. He wanted to know if that boy always carried all those weapons. And if this was the concern of someone who was unable to have a divine weapon, he had already forgotten the trap he had set and wanted to find someone he could trust. Someone with enough potential to eventually become a great hero. That conversation seemed like the ramblings of a madman. But an intense blue glow appeared in the man's hand, shooting a bolt towards the boy. A shining object was in front of him. It looked like a weapon, leaving the protagonist genuinely impressed with what was happening. The man said he would trust the boy, leaving that weapon with him. Still embedded in the ground, the object shone as it released energy. He thought it might be a sword and began to approach it, until he finally touched it with his hand. Finally, he realized that what he had received was just the sheath of the sword. The Divine Sheath of Avalon, an item that allows its user to store their divine weapon and hand it over to another person. Passed down from generation to generation, it now holds the weapon of those who were the 5 greatest in history. The boy's determination is focused on gaining complete mastery of that item. 3 years had passed since that event. He is with his mentor, and a dragon flies over the sky. The creature advances toward them, furious. It had prepared its flames, ready to annihilate the living from the face of the earth. But that heat is not concerning for the protagonist, who is not impressed. Immediately invoking Avalon, the white sheath appears in his hand. He holds it as if he were drawing a sword. Concentrated, he commanded the power to manifest, until the windshield of Achilles appeared in his hands. Powerful enough to generate an effective protective barrier against the dragon's attack. To attack, he invoked the hammer of the storm, Mjolnir. Jumping onto the dragon, with the hammer positioned to deliver a tremendous blow. The strike was forceful and crushing, sending the creature's head toward the ground. A single blow was enough. The mentor said he had mastered Avalon. He said he could go to his sister now, for not even an S-level paladin would be able to stop him. Hearing those words, hope filled the protagonist's gaze. With great joy, he said he would do as instructed. 5 years had passed since he was banished, and now he has plenty of power to rescue his sister. As he advances, he hopes that Sarah is safe, for he is on his way to her. To rescue her from that despicable place. However, upon arriving in the region, he saw that fire had taken over everything. He does not know what could have happened, becoming immediately very worried. Amidst the fire, he saw some banners raised. He soon realized that those symbols belonged to another duchy. To Roth-Windsor, a civil war was underway. He enters the castle, searching for his sister. Desperate, approaching a large gate that is already ajar. But upon entering the hall, he is confronted with a lamentable scene. There was a body lying on the ground, severely injured. It cannot be that this has happened. That is the body of his beloved sister. He picked her up, very worried. The girl showed no reaction. It is possible that the worst has already been consumed. He remembered the words he had said to her, and the promise he was unable to keep. Completely desolate, a desperate scream filled the air of that place. After perfecting his power, he was unable to accomplish what had motivated him all these years. A bolt of energy was coming toward him. Passing through the boy's body, his chest had been pierced. There was another presence with them. That threatening mana surely belongs to a warrior at S level. The man knows that this is Bel, who had already been banished, but the boy cannot understand how he had been recognized. But that no longer matters, for he would keep his sister company in the afterlife. Definitely, this is the person who reaped his sister's life. Raising his blade, he was prepared to end the protagonist, who was completely consumed by destructive grief. But already weakened, he can do nothing. After these nefarious events, he found himself before the priest once again. Looking at his hands, he does not understand how he had been sent to that place. That stained glass is known to him. It is in his family's cathedral. The ceremony is underway, and he is sure that he had died. If this is the ceremony, it can only mean that he has returned in time. The priest instructed him to join his hands and visualize his own divine equipment. But the boy knows what happened the first time. At that point in his life, he had not yet inherited Avalon, and was already hoping to be banished to restart his journey once again. Only something different happened, which surprised him. There is no doubt what is before his eyes is Avalon. He believes he will do everything again this time. With the power he possesses, he will be able to change destiny. Now is when his life will truly begin. This is unusual even for the priest, who has never seen anything like this and has something to say about it. Anticipating what the priest would say, he knows that fighting with a sheath would not be possible. Caught off guard, the priest said that was not what he was thinking of saying. Even so, the boy who overflowed with confidence warned him that he should not worry. That is the best divine weapon that exists. Already in the castle corridors, he is going after his sister, because if he has returned to the past, she must still be alive. His past life is still very recent, and he is very worried about Sarah. Finally, he managed to reach her room door. Sarah greeted him with a wide smile. Indeed, she is alive and healthy, and she radiates the same beauty he remembered. Seeing her brother, whom she did not expect, the girl went to him to give him a hug. For she also wants to know how his ceremony went. The boy does not respond, as he is very happy that she is still alive. That hug was so sudden that Sarah wondered if something had happened to her brother. He still regrets not being able to save her in his other life. The memory of the pain is still very intense for him. He will not allow his sister to go through that suffering again. It didn't take long for the girl to complain about the hug, as it was too tight. Even so, everything was fine. She was happy to have received that hug. Only then did she notice what was on the boy's face. Tears were streaming down his eyes, and she still does not know the reason. Running her hand over his head, she comforted him, and said that everything would be alright, for they have each other. Hearing those words warmed the heart of the boy who, apparently, grew up in Alabama. The jerk brother also entered the room, noticing that the mutts were getting along very well. He had already been looking for Belle for some time. That is Zane, a great sadist. The jerk said he had already heard the news. His brother obtained a peculiar item during the ceremony. Apparently, the priest really enjoys meddling in others' lives, a true gossip. Belle confirmed that he had received a sheath. His brother cannot hide his disdain. Laughing uncontrollably, he said that a sheath is not a weapon and serves very well for that poor soul. He would never be able to fight with that, and the two gathered there are indeed very foolish. The protagonist had to hold his hand, as the urge was to perform an orthodontic procedure without anesthesia on the jerk. So, he gave him a chance to take back those words. But the jerk did not understand that stance. He was not used to seeing his half-brother react. Then, the protagonist warned him once again to take back what he had said. Feeling that it was a challenge, the jerk became even more filled with hatred. Now, he would teach a lesson to the son of the concubine. For the jerk's complete misfortune, the protagonist has years of hard training with his mentor, landing a solid blow to his stomach so that he reflects on his actions from then on. The poor boy only did not regurgitate his lunch because the food was already closer to the end than the beginning. He fell to the ground, prostrated over himself. Perhaps he felt the blow to his liver, and his blood pressure dropped. Looking at the jerk, he advised him not to threaten Sarah again, or he could end up being forcibly taught to be more polite. The jerk says that his half-brother is a bastard, and now he was going to escalate the violence. With his divine weapon, he promised to make his brother beg for forgiveness, as he would scorch his skin. Seeing that the jerk wanted a serious fight, then, it was all good. He warned Sarah to step back, as things were going to get quite entertaining now. But he reassured her first, as everything would be alright. Preparing for battle, he summoned the powerful Avalon into his hand. His brother does not believe he can be defeated with an object that is not even a weapon. For he is already a level E paladin, a bastard would never stand a chance against him. That is actually relevant. Paladins are divided into levels. Everything depends on the strength they possess. Upon receiving divine armament, they automatically go to level F. Being able to channel mana into the armament, they rise to level E. From level D upwards, that same mana can be channeled into special attacks. To go beyond level B, it is necessary to know how to use the unique abilities of that equipment. It is bizarre that the jerk boasts about being at level E, as he still has a lot of development to do. His exaggerated confidence only makes the jerk even more irritated. Being even more provocative, he said that his brother was being very cute. That had been the last straw. He was going to attack the mutt in a devastating manner. Sarah became worried, as she was sure things could get complicated. Bringing his hands to the sheath, he summoned the Sword of Light to be called. Caliburn appeared before them, a truly formidable sword. The fool couldn't believe it, as the flames from his weapon were ineffective against it. Not to mention that he had no idea what that sword was that had appeared. The counterattack was enough to make the fool lose his balance. Even more surprising is that his divine weapon was cut by that sword. The boy watches, terrified, understanding that he has been completely subdued. Still unable to comprehend what happened, he is sure that there was nothing in that sheath. Approaching him, the protagonist wants to know if he is satisfied, or if he wishes to beg for forgiveness now. As the good loser he is, he said he was deceived. That he didn't know the boy was armed, because if he had known, he wouldn't have attacked, since he is a coward. He was still able to threaten him, saying he wouldn't forget this. Fleeing the room, scared and with his underwear completely obliterated, the protagonist made sure to follow him, as they had not finished what they had started. In his hand now, is a fire-breathing lead shooter, the Ragnarok. With the fool in his sights, he took a single shot. The poor soul tries to escape, realizing that the shot had passed too close to his face. It hit the wall in front of him. Contemplating the hole left by the bullet, he became even more frightened. Everything was becoming increasingly confusing for him. It doesn't make sense that he now has a different weapon. As he had just used a sword, it is impossible for him to have more than one divine weapon. The protagonist advised him not to forget this. He shouldn't provoke Sarah again. In any case, it is up to him to choose what he will do from then on. And the fool no longer has any underwear to destroy. His fear continues to grow. With coldness in his gaze like a lone shark collecting, he warned that the consequence of the fool's actions could earn him a hole in his forehead. Desperate, the fool ran away to save his own life, while the protagonist stored his divine weapon. Sira, who had seen all of this, was utterly impressed. She was fine and wanted to know if those weapons were her brother's divine armament. Then he reminded her that he had already warned her. She could leave everything in his hands. The girl thought that was really cool, and what the protagonist desires is to continue protecting that beautiful smile. He would never lose to anyone again. Elsewhere, the fool went to tell what had happened. He had gone to his father to tell the Duke that he had been humiliated like a dog. The Duke is interested that Belle has received several divine weapons. The fool warned that this is not normal and that Belle must have made a pact with Beelzebub, the lone shark. And because of that, they should banish him from that place immediately. But the Duke didn't even hear those words, as he was too entertained by the possibilities of having a powerful heir. Rising from his throne and completely ignoring the boy, asking where his father was going, he learned that he was going to see Belle. He needs to check for himself if this is indeed true. After that event, the boy needs to recover a bit. He managed to win the battle, but that is still the body of a child. He was quite exhausted, as he is still not able to control his mana with mastery. That should have been a fire shot, but it ended up being a conventional shot. He is definitely at level F. He still needs to improve his strength, but he knows he cannot remain at this level of power. He began to remember the battle he had seen. They were the Rothwinsers. They are a family with whom they have an old rivalry. Anything could have been the spark for that conflict. Certainly, the one responsible for attacking him must be from that family. But this time, things will be different. He will defend his sister, and for that, he also needs to be more respected in his own family. The doors to his room were opened, and he has no idea why his father was there. Galleon had accomplished great feats in the great battle that took place 20 years ago. Alone, he was able to fight against the evil god. He carved his path through the Dark Continent, using his sword to do so. He is recognized by many as the Saint of the Sword, and by his father's side as the little fool. Now he understands the reason why his father came there. He is definitely being accused of something, but this is the perfect situation for him. The fastest way to be valued is to be noticed by the head of the family. Bowing, he showed respect to the Duke. The old man said that the boy had changed a lot since the last time they saw each other. But on that occasion, he came to him as a father, and asked him to be more relaxed. Full of maturity, he said it is not possible, as one word is enough to be misunderstood, and he must be responsible in front of the Duke. The old man was enamored by the maturity of the little brat. He asked the boy to stand up, and so he did. He would do as the boy recommended and remain there as a Duke. Immediately, his presence became overwhelming. The Duke's pressure is frightening. He learned that his sons fought, and conflicts between siblings are forbidden. Belle showed a bit of regret, and the little jerk believes he will see the bastard punished. No one in that house can stand before the Duke's power, but the boy had already established himself. He said that he and his younger sister were being harassed. In light of the confession, the Duke asked if his orders had been violated due to childishness. The boy confirmed once again, and the Duke wants to know if he truly does not regret disobeying his orders. Belle said that abandoning those he loves is an even greater disgrace for a paladin. He would fight to defend his sister, even if the opponent were his older brother. That is the path of the knight he wishes to tread. The Duke pointed the tip of his sword at him, asking what he would do if the opponent were him. But the boy maintained his stance. He would not hesitate, even if the opponent were the Duke himself. The old man tried to intimidate him with a glare, but ended up liking his son's resilience. He said he would let this incident be overlooked, to the little jerk's discontent. And, looking at him, he was disappointed that Zane had harassed his own sister, and subsequently lost a fight. The little jerk did not expect to receive this reversal. He said that he should be ashamed of that, and not present himself before him. He understands Belle's choice, and that it was brave of him to say that, knowing the consequences of his words. The boy apologized for being impetuous, but his father said that this is the attitude he expects from Knights of Catastrophe. Now, he wishes for the boy to show him his power by revealing his divine weaponry. He would do as he had been asked. A blue light began to emerge from between his hands, and the Duke was even more impressed. That sheath is Avalon, his divine weapon. But for the Duke, this makes no sense at all. He had heard rumors of the legendary weapon that carries the spirit of the original paladin, which is wielded by great heroes throughout history. He asked him if it was true that he had used a sword and a firearm, and Bell confirmed. He said that these weapons reside in Avalon. To prove his words, he showed both to his father. Immediately, the Duke began to wonder if this was really possible. And to his total surprise, he heard that the boy can only use 2 at a time, but that there are 3 more weapons in the sheath. Definitely, that son of his is destined to be the next hero. He told him that he has no interest in the weak, but that from now on he has high expectations for his future. Leaving his room, he asked him to keep working very hard. The doors finally closed, and the boy could rest, for that pressure was overwhelming. He just needs to keep striving, but it's a shame he has a child's body. He needs to reach level D as quickly as possible, and for that, he needs to defeat monsters to absorb more mana. He would go to the nearest forest to hunt some orcs. Night finally came, and the head of one of the creatures is lying on the ground, without its body. In the forest, the annihilation continues. There was nothing the creatures could do, for something much fiercer was there. The beast's teeth are sharp as iron swords. It roars furiously, establishing its dominance. That forest certainly brings nostalgic memories. After being banished in his past life, he trained there for some time, but something feels strange. He has been walking for a while, and has not encountered any monsters yet. Amid the bushes, a creature watches him. He finally finds some orcs, but they are a bit disassembled. Their pieces are now part of the forest's decoration. It is a scene as frightening as it is unusual. And while trying to understand, he is startled by a terrifying sound. The boy looks back to understand what it is. An attack was already underway, and he had to defend himself. The force was greater than his, throwing him far away. This was not the creature he wished to encounter. That is definitely Fenrir. The reason there are no monsters in the forest is a level D creature. He has almost no mana now and must be at most level E. It would be good if he could get out of there immediately. But, looking into the creature's eyes, he knows he would be executed immediately. The boy needs to stay very alert to avoid becoming dog food. Being caught off guard, he realized that the monster's speed is greater than he imagined. He had to throw himself away from the attack. In his hands, he summoned the fire-spitting pistol. He fired a few shots at the creature, which was able to dodge all of them. Now, he is in trouble, for sure. Since his mana is still low, the spells are not very fast. The firearm will not be effective. He needs to try something else. With the sword in hand, he charged at his attacker. The paw full of sharp claws is a formidable threat, but the boy managed to dodge that devastating attack. And because of that, he found an opening. He struck at the creature, but it managed to dodge as well. He needs to rethink his strategy. That is a real risk he is facing. If he were at the height of his power, the forest dog would have already been annihilated. The wolf lunges at him once again, furious. Bell knows he cannot match that speed, so he had to stand still to defend against that attack. And because of that, he ended up taking some damage. He had been cornered, and now he cannot escape the center of that barrage of attacks. Little by little, he was being subdued by the creature, which advances toward him, ready to have its afternoon snack. Remembering that he had just reincarnated, he could not allow his life to end so prematurely. He needed to summon Achilles' shield. This way, he could defend himself and attack. However, the creature's agility is formidable, and he was caught off guard from the side. The boy, upon falling, let the shield slip from his hands. The fight cannot continue at this pace, or he will end up becoming the food for that aggressive dog. The weapons he had used so far were completely useless, and using the hammer against it will also be difficult, as it has attacks that are too slow. He only has one weapon left to try. With no choices, he needs to use it immediately. The creature is ready to take his life. The boy closes his eyes, concentrating. About to be hit, he called Aegis to him, but the creature's blow had already been executed. Unexpectedly, nothing happened. A gauntlet is in his hand, surrounded by dark energy. He didn't want to have to use it, but this is better than dying a second time. The creature is prepared to attack. Only the battle had already ended. The boy has also become much faster. With the hammer in hand, he is on top of the creature. It will not be able to keep up with him now, and the hammer was already prepared to crush skulls. A precise and crushing blow struck the creature, which writhes in agony as its teeth are rearranged in its mouth. Aegis is the gauntlet of darkness, enhancing the physical strength of its user. But that is not all that happens to those who use it. He begins to hear a voice giving him orders to destroy. The wolf remains alive and angrier. Time passes and the user only grows stronger, and he desires to take lives. Eagerly waiting for the creature to approach him. Dodging all the attacks coming his way. Now it is the wolf that is at a disadvantage, and the boy seems to be very entertained by it. Finally, the wolf no longer belongs to the land of the living. It is a relief for the protagonist that he was able to end that swiftly. That weapon cannot be uncoupled in combat, and its effect becomes more intense as time passes, sinking its user into darkness. Now it remains to be seen why there was a Fenrir in that forest. While he was thinking, he saw that the hammer was different. It seemed to be completely charged with energy. By defeating the creature, he will be able to use its attributes. Defeating powerful creatures is better than defeating weak monsters. He can't wait to test that out. In the castle garden, his sister enjoys the afternoon under the shade of a tree. Finally, the flower crown was completed. She hopes her brother likes that gift, but someone snatched the crown from her hands. The girl said that the flower crown is horrible, but that it is suitable for a filthy girl like the one who made it. That damned one is named Jessica. She wants to know what Spencer thinks about it. The bizarre-looking boy agrees with Jessica. He is there, just to obey her. As she threw the flower crown into the air, it was immediately destroyed. Spencer used a whip for that. Sarah did not like that, but she is defenseless. Jessica is bored. There is nothing to do there. With a weapon in hand, she invited Sarah to go with her, because it is time for her to practice a bit to improve her aim. Firing a shot at the girl who shrank back, frightened, Bell had appeared, defending the shot with his sheath, stating that he would play with Jessica. Sarah is surprised as she did not see him arrive. In fact, she is completely oblivious to her surroundings, never seeing anyone approach. Bell said he was also looking for an excuse to test his divine weaponry. Only Jessica did not understand what was happening. No mutt would stand in her way. Bell is too busy trying to comfort his sister and telling her that everything will be alright. And now he has something to do with the sassy girl. The boy with the terrible hair tried to position himself in an intimidating manner. He knows that this boy is a kind of servant to Jessica. So he made a point of showing himself to him as the Duke's son, but he would not show respect to someone who was the son of a concubine. That only made the protagonist irritated. Jessica wants to know why he is so confident, since he is weak and got lucky beating Zane. They believe that the protagonist was lucky and that Zane was careless. And using only a sheath as a weapon, he must be the weakest of the weak. Closing his eyes, he stated that it is better for her to see for herself if what he has is luck or talent. Jessica, who did not expect all of this, became anxious, ordering Spencer to take care of that trash quickly. Something he would do with great pleasure. Wherever his whip touched, ice formed. Even so, Bell was not impressed. Spencer is a D-rank paladin and has an ice whip as divine weaponry. And he is much stronger than the loser who is only at E rank. But the protagonist is the protagonist. The boy said he would freeze the legs so that his victim could not escape. And then the arms and body until he could not move anymore. Ending with slaps to his face until he became unrecognizable. Bell said that he talks too much. And now the extra will be reminded that he is an extra. Spencer recommended that he not be underestimated. And now he would turn him into a popsicle. The whip was already heading towards Bell, but the boy was able to dodge easily. Jessica does not believe he was capable of that. For a D-rank paladin, he is not bad, but he is still an extra. And the protagonist trained hard in his past life. That was nothing more than a child's pastime. Sarah was even more impressed. Her brother seemed to be dancing. While Spencer became deeply irritated, saying that his victim only knows how to run. Then, Bell would show him that he was not fleeing. From now on, he would no longer dodge. Everyone present was surprised by this overwhelming confidence. Bell wants to see if the sassy one can fulfill his threats. Spencer succumbed to the provocation and charged for the attack. And now he would freeze him completely. The whip lunged towards a Bell who was standing with arms wide open. Striking several times, but nothing happened. Sarah was very worried. The ice had finally formed. His arms and legs were frozen now. If he cannot move, it is time for Spencer to attack his face. Bell wants to know if that is all he is capable of doing. Because if it is his turn to be the attacker. He immediately called for Ragnarok. And the firearm appeared in his hand. For the sassy one, it is impossible that he has two divine weapons. To free himself from the ice, Bell began to release his mana. Now he is free to move around freely. Jessica does not believe that Bell was able to do that. It is not possible that he has 2 divine armaments, in addition to using his attributes in that way. And now it is time to bring punishment until he says enough, firing intense flames at him. Spencer knows he is in trouble. He tried to protect himself using the ice whip, covering his body, believing that would be enough to block the approaching flames. Bell knows that it won't be difficult at all, since the bullet completely pierced that block of ice. Spencer cannot believe he will be violently oppressed. The projectile struck his chest forcefully. The force of the impact did not penetrate him, but caused interesting damage. He fell to the ground, to Jessica's terror. The mutt destroyed the ice and knocked down a D-rank paladin. And since she is at E rank, she knows she has no chance. The protagonist looks at her and says that it is all over now. The girl invokes her divine weapon. She told him not to come any closer. But the fear is so intense that she cannot wield the weapon without trembling. She fired several shots at him but hit none. Desperate, she begged him not to come any closer. But her feet were hesitant. She fell on her own, as her fear was the most abundant thing in that place. Before her stands someone who could end her life if he wished. Being categorical, he recommended that she not bother Sarah again. The girl is unable to respond as she is paralyzed. All she could do was flee that place while she still had time. Sarah goes to her brother. Very grateful. She wants to know if the whip had hurt him. But he says that Spencer is so weak that it is almost pitiful. Sarah praised Bell's strength. Who said he is only strong enough to protect her? He showed her the flower crown he had made. But the other one had been destroyed. Placing it on Bell's head, he thanked him for always being strong. Bell received a gift from his sister. One day he will make the entire nation honor that kind soul. The problem is that everyone there despises the children of concubines. And proving his worth will be difficult. He needs to be respected. And for that, there is something he needs to achieve immediately. Outside the palace stands the Duke. He is meditating while wielding his sword. His concentration is truly impressive. After a while, he executed some cuts in the air. He was able to cut the falling leaves. Only then did he notice that Bell had approached him. He asked what the boy wanted, walking over to him. He had come to ask the Duke for permission. Interested, he asked what the boy wanted to request. Before asking, he knelt before the Duke. The Duke was impressed by all that formality. He wants to take the admission exam for level C. The Duke seems to be interested in the boy's request. He said he would like to serve the king as a member of his household. For the duchy to continue being recognized, his family has obligations to fulfill with the royal family, such as providing escorts and eliminating monsters. Doing this is the fastest way for him to gain status within his own family. This way, he will achieve results by completing difficult tasks. To get the best tasks, he needs to take this exam. Looking at the boy, the Duke realized he has great ambitions, but he made it clear that it is still too early for him to take this exam, becoming a complete paladin even before reaching level C, and at the moment, he is only at level F, as he has just received his divine weapon. He should focus, at first, on the exam for level E. What the Duke did not expect to see is that the boy had something to show. Showing that Fong to him, he asked if it was enough to change his mind. The Duke knows exactly what that is. It is a Fong from Fenrir. Immediately he asked how the boy managed to obtain that item. He showed one of his divine weapons. Bell explained that it was a bit difficult, but he was able to tame that stubborn mutt. Seeing the energy that enveloped that hammer, the Duke realized that the boy can already use tributes. Moreover, he was able to defeat a creature of level D. The boy is truly strong and should be capable of taking the level C exam. He would allow the boy to take the exam under one condition. He should not even consider the possibility of disappointing the duchy. Filled with confidence and gratitude, Bell assured him that he would never do that. Instead of the test, he noticed that there were several candidates there. This is due to the fact that level C is a wall for many people, completely insurmountable. The little boy draws the attention of the candidates present. Many of them are already adults while he is just a child. He had approached the exam reception. The attendant wanted to know who he was and if he was accompanied by his father, but she was impressed to find out that he was there to take the exam. She recommended that he come back again when he was older. The boy asked not to be treated like a child, as he is also a paladin. While they were talking, someone approached Bell, asking him to stop playing paladin. Little kids like him shouldn't be in that place. He should leave immediately. The protagonist doesn't even know what this person's problem is, but it will certainly be a problem. The others present know exactly who this figure is. His name is Lennox, and he is currently the strongest level D paladin. It is said that his divine weapon, the Wind Sword, makes 8 cuts every time it is wielded. A truly impressive ability, and he already has many fans. Lennox warned that if the child is going to take the exam, he should at least be as good as he is, and he doubts whether the protagonist even possesses a divine weapon. Holding the sheath at his waist, he said it was there with him. Noticing that it was just a sheath, the young man began to laugh, imagining that it must be impossible to fight with such trash. Other bystanders started to laugh too, not imagining that there was trash as divine weaponry and being grateful that they weren't that useless. Lennox said he doesn't care if an ignorant child wants to end his own life that way, but he was bothered that his participation in the exam puts him on the same level as if they were equals. Saying goodbye, he warned that the little trash should go back to his mother's lap. With the session of annoyance over, the boy told the secretary to register him immediately. She wants to know if the boy is sure about this, but he is unyielding. For that, a recommendation from a knight of level B or higher is necessary in addition to being at level D. With that letter of recommendation, he should be able to participate. This should resolve all issues. The girl knows that it is unlikely anyone would recommend a child, but reading the letter, she realized it comes from Duke Catastrophe himself. Only then did she realize that the child before her is also the Duke's child. The participants are gathered in the arena, the place where the exam will take place. The instructor would begin to give the instructions regarding how the exam works. First, they will be taken to a dungeon through that teleportation stone. They will have 5 hours to return with the Jewel of Light. In total, there are 3 of them inside the dungeon. Only those who obtain the jewels will be promoted. The arrogant fool believes he is destined to be one of the victors. The competition before him feels intimidated, while the protagonist feels embarrassed for the young man. After the explanation, the instructor asked if everyone there is ready. Seeing their enthusiastic response, the exam would begin immediately. It is the protagonist's turn to enter the dungeon through the teleportation stone. The wheels begin to shine intensely, and he found himself on his way to a completely different place. It was as if he had passed through a portal. He was finally inside the cave. It seems that they were all sent to different places on the first floor. He must think about which route to choose. Although the dungeon is very large, he has enough time to complete it, and, since he has the opportunity, it would be a shame not to use it to the best of his ability. There are many creatures in this dungeon, and the more monsters he defeats, the greater his mana will be. Immediately he drew his sword, determined to hunt all the creatures that exist there. Inside the dungeon, the other candidates are having difficulties defeating the creatures. They are formidable and quite dangerous. The eyes of those lizards are frightening and violent, more than enough to intimidate the weak. The arrogant extra does not understand how the others are struggling to defeat such weak creatures. He is capable of annihilating the creatures with a broad smile, as it does not require much of his abilities. His feats earn him applause from the others. Very full of himself, he claimed that he is not mediocre like the rest, and, to be frank, that difficulty is frustrating. The extras are happy to follow him, as they will be safe. Being accompanied by them, Lennox warned that they would have a privileged view of his skills, and that weaklings like those are only good for wandering around. After wandering through the dungeon, the group came across a very large door. That must be the last room. He hopes to be able to entertain himself a bit. Unexpectedly, there were several level D monsters in that place, and the jewels are positioned on an altar at the end of the room. One of the creatures began to walk toward the group. Lennox believes he will be able to cut it into pieces, delivering several cuts toward the monster, but its body is so hard and resilient that it suffered no damage at all. It is time for the creature to counterattack. For the first time in the dungeon, the arrogant extra found himself pressured by one of the monsters. The blow was so strong that he ended up losing his balance, but he is still surprised that his attacks had no effect whatsoever. Even the other extras could not believe that this was happening. Immediately worried, as the other creatures had focused on them, the young man needed to act to save his own life. He managed to hit one of the monsters that was attacking him, only to realize that physical attacks were completely useless against it. Meanwhile, the woman was having difficulties fighting the creature capable of flying. This other monster could attack with its feathers without needing to get close. Lennox finally realized the extent of the difficulty at the end of that exam. There would be a monster capable of resisting each of the divine abilities they possess. Against that stone creature, he is completely ineffective. Terrified and frozen, he closed his eyes, hoping for the worst not to happen. But the terrible creature was destroyed before it could hit the candidate. He opened his eyes, still very impressed. Bell is relieved, as if he had arrived a little late. The worst would have happened. He ended up having a lot of fun while hunting. Lennox immediately recognized the boy. He is the little trash who was taking the exam. A monster immune to physical attacks is approaching him. Bell needed to change his strategy to deal with that creature. The sword would be the ideal weapon for that. Lennox was surprised that the boy's divine weapon had transformed. Bell finished off that creature in a single blow. Now he needed to deal with the one that was flying. He has perfect equipment for that, capable of making multiple shots. Pummeling the creature's body with bullets, he turned it into a sieve with wings. The other extras do not believe that the boy is truly strong, as the divine weapon he possessed was just an empty sheath. Lennox does not understand how it is possible for him to have multiple divine weapons. Not to mention that the boy has immense mastery over each of them. As time was short, he needed to finish off the creatures quickly. Watching everything from the sidelines, the arrogant extra does not believe that a child can be so skilled. While he continued to be impressed, the protagonist kept defeating the creatures. With everything properly finished, he just needed to collect one of the jewels. He had finally arrived at the altar where they were positioned. The extras approached him to begin the process of flattery. Something that the protagonist does not appreciate. They soon revealed themselves to be toxic, belittling the one they had been flattering earlier. They said that, compared to the child, he is a great piece of trash and that they had always been wrong about him. Lennox's confidence had been annihilated by that experience. The two extras believe they will collect the 2 remaining jewels. Without saying anything to them, the boy summoned his hammer. He had already recovered the jewel necessary for his own approval, and he was ready to do something very entertaining. He delivered a powerful blow onto the altar. To the surprise of the 2 flattering extras, they asked what the hell that was. The boy had destroyed the remaining jewels. Showing them the only jewel that was left, he said that if they wanted it so badly, they could just take it. Saying that the 2, besides being useless, are merely flatterers who take advantage of others' talents, who take pleasure in belittling those who are not useful to them. They are all unworthy of being called knights. Being reprimanded by a child is something that devastated their egos. Bell is leaving the room, leaving the extras there. Lennox seems to have developed from that reprimand, recognizing his weaknesses and that he was very arrogant, thanking Bell for it. But he would not let that become his end. The protagonist finds it surprising that he has been honest, and that he has ambitions. Confirming that one day they would meet again. Outside, the boy celebrates. Finally, he would be a level C knight, and, having hunted several monsters, his mana has developed quite a bit. Now he just needs to earn respect within his own house to be able to protect his sister. Finally, he arrives at the Duke's residence to share the news. But the Duke seems to be in the middle of a serious meeting, with knights who are planning to overthrow the MANHUA family. 3 level B paladins are approaching those lands. The Duke's family has been tasked with dealing with them. It seems that another noble family had problems with these paladins. Rumors say that these knights enchanted their weapons with forbidden spells. Those level B paladins now know why they were called there. The Duke stated that they could not allow karma to continue like this. They need to eradicate them immediately. One of the young men noticed that another knight was missing. Jean was not there with them. Placing a book on the table, a young man asked what the meeting was about. Immediately, the others turned to see who it was. The young man said that this organization had already been annihilated. For he, who will be the next Duke, will be the reason for this event. One of the maids is bringing the meal to her lady, informing her that the food has arrived. Sarah prepares to sit at the table. Being very polite, she thanked the woman's efforts. Who left the room, not paying any attention to this gratitude? Sarah seems to be very sad. She looks at her meal with no enthusiasm whatsoever. Finally, her brother enters the room announcing that he has arrived. He looks at her with great joy. Sarah reciprocates in the same way. Bell informed her that he had to do something important, and that he brought gifts for her. On the table now lies a complete meal. Sarah was very happy with the apple pie that had been brought, and she hopes to be able to eat all of that in her brother's company. But that is not the time to enjoy her sister's company. The food is always the same, as even the servants detest the children of concubines. He needs to work hard to improve his sister's quality of life immediately. The meeting with the Duke is still ongoing. He is impressed that one of his sons has dealt with karma alone. This can only mean that Jean has already reached level A. As expected of the Duke's eldest son, he is on another level. After that, he also sat at the table. He wants to know if his father has anything else to share. He mentioned that the king has assigned their family another task. They should escort Princess Rika Schutig-Velen. One of the knights would like to know if the royal guard is not sufficient. The others said that the royalty should not have been informed, even though karma is no longer a problem. Thus, the safest route should go through Rakata. While they were talking, another person entered the hall. The boy asked them to wait before deciding. His appearance caught everyone's attention. The knights know that this is Belle. The Duke cannot deny that he is very pleased with his son's talent. It seems that the exam had already ended. Showing his certificate, the boy confirmed that he now belongs to level C. It is impressive that he achieved this at such a young age. Now, the Duke wants to know why he interrupted. He would like to suggest another route for this journey. One of the knights was surprised that a boy had something to suggest. The route that goes through Rakata has no monsters, which is why there are so many bandits, and the journey would take 3 days. It would be better if the journey went through the monster plains. One of the knights warned that that place is definitely dangerous. But the boy knows the monsters that inhabit this region. Most of them are chimeras and horrors of the dark. Both are nocturnal creatures. Passing during the day would be much safer. Not to mention that it would only take a single day to reach the destination. The knight, unfortunately, has to agree with that. After listening to the boy, the Duke realized that he is assertive and knows a lot about monsters. It remains to be seen what they thought of this. For the boy would like to be included in this task and is confident that he would safely escort the princess. His stance made the Duke remain thoughtful. Finally, Jean made his contribution to the dialogue. A threatening energy filled the air. He wants to know why this mud is talking to them. The energy is so intense that even a plant on the table ended up wilting. Belle had already forgotten how terrible his older brother's intimidation is. Even so, that was not enough to intimidate him. Revealing his divine weapon, he said he was serious too, claiming that he would be able to safely take the princess to her destination, no matter what happens. Intrigued by the boy's confidence, Jean asked if he would be able to stop him. Belle stated that a knight keeps his word. Jin's servant ordered the boy to shut up, since his words represented blasphemy against Jean. This is Razor, the secretary of his brother, who by now must be a level B paladin. Jean seems very interested in the boy and asked his secretary to put him to the test. Then, he also revealed his divine weapon. As he was prepared to beat that child, he was going to teach a lesson to the son of a concubine. He immediately began to step toward the boy, who seems to be very attentive to his surroundings even though he hasn't moved. The secretary is about to deliver the first blow. Belle realized that this could be much more difficult than expected. Even so, he was able to defend himself efficiently. Something that left the secretary impressed. Jean also seemed to have liked what he saw. That was faster than expected. It is still early for him to be able to defeat a level B paladin in combat. Firmly and authoritatively, the Duke warned that that is enough, stating that Belle would be in charge of that task. The secretary asked if the Duke was serious about this. Since karma had already been annihilated by Jean, this would be an interesting task as a first mission. Belle respectfully thanked him, stating that he would not disappoint him. Jean is watching the boy closely, but his wicked smile hides something. Belle needed to go to the royal palace. This is the first time he is going to this place. He heads to the gates to make his entrance, but he is stopped by the guards, who say he cannot just enter there. The boy introduces himself, showing his paladin certificate, and warns that he is responsible for escorting the princess. They have difficulty believing that this child is already at level C, properly identified. He managed to pass through the gates. The guards have doubts that the child is capable of protecting Her Highness. Finally, the princess's carriage had arrived. She said that her bodyguard is very cute. Apologized to him, confirming that she would not need his help. The man sitting on the throne wants to know if the princess has already left. His servant confirms that she should already be on the road. In addition to several guards in her company, the Duke's son is also part of her escort. He learned that this son is Belle, who must still be a child. Imagining that he must be extremely talented, he asked his servant to be cautious, asking him to use his secret weapon if the situation called for it. Revealing blades in his hands, he stated that there would be no need, for his specialty is to eliminate people without them knowing it. The carriage continues on its way. Inside there are the princess, the protagonist, and the guards. That task is very simple, but of great importance. Completing it is essential to help her sister. But there is a catch to that. He does not feel comfortable at all. It seems he was not well received. Asking permission for imagining it might be a rude question. He wanted to know why the princess said he would not be necessary. She takes a little while to respond. Saying that she does not like to depend on others, she has her own divine weaponry and is not as weak as people imagine. The boy realized that she is even more arrogant than he had thought. Inside the city, life goes on normally. That seems to have awakened something in the princess. She looks outside with great enthusiasm. The boy enjoys seeing her joy. But the princess felt uncomfortable with that. He apologized, stating that she resembles his sister very much. And he is sure that she would have reacted the same way looking at all that. The princess asked if they usually get along. Belle told her that they play a lot when they are together. Since she is still very young, the games are simple things. The princess said that she has many siblings, but she cannot trust any of them. Imagining that it might be about succession conflicts, Belle felt sorry for her. He said that in his own house, he goes through a very similar situation. His siblings often chase them for being the children of a concubine. Since his mother is deceased, there is no one to protect them. The princess seems to have become interested in that. Belle said that she must feel that way, and that she could confide in him if she felt comfortable. But she does not want to depend on anyone, much less on someone like him. The boy does not know what her situation is, and by presuming he understands something, was disrespectful. Around the road, outside the walls, they are being watched. At night, finally, it came upon them. They arrived at their destination in one day, as planned. But for the princess, that had been very tiring. The gates open, and she is welcomed. Finally she does not know who this young man is. His name is Peter, one of the knights of that kingdom, and he said they are happy to finally welcome her. Belle has heard of Peter but cannot remember now, and he found it very strange that they were welcomed outside the city. Those who prepared the ambush are ready to act, and the princess's entourage remains outside. The boy noticed that there are many guards there, but it is still strange. A dagger was thrown at them. He managed to act quickly to protect her with his divine weaponry. She and her guards were immediately frightened. An enemy attack was underway, and several daggers had been thrown at her. Since there were many, this could be a big problem. Peter is also ready to act. With his sword skills, he managed to protect the princess. He would not let anything happen to her. Seeing what the knight is capable of, Belle imagined that he must be at level B. The assassins needed to flee. The ambush was not completed. Peter gives the order to his knights to pursue those men. The princess will be escorted out of the castle. Belle stayed outside while the princess was taken away. She looks back, quite apprehensive. Inside, they informed her that she is safe, but the princess stated that she is capable of defending herself. While the knight said he would protect her, he was attacked. The author of that action was Peter himself. Now she knows that the real danger is on her side. He looks at the guard, who has just lost his life. Definitely, his sacrifice was for nothing. The princess does not know what will happen now. Peter told her that her life would end in a few moments. Despite having said she is capable of defending herself, the princess is completely defenseless. The knight approaches her slowly. She is so frightened that she cannot invoke her divine weaponry. Peter revealed himself to be a degenerate. With a horrific smile, the princess now needs someone capable of saving her. The window of the place was broken. Peter was surprised by what just happened. One of his men had been annihilated, and the boy responsible for the escort is the author of this. Peter apologized for being late, and finally climbed down from the window.